Today's story comes from St John's Gospel, chapter 21, verse 1 to 19, and it's entitled Gone Fishing. Have you ever had to wait for someone special to arrive? It can feel like forever, can't it? Well, Peter and the other disciples were back in Galilee by the sea. Here they are. So, when the women had seen the angel at the tomb, he had given them a message. Tell the disciples he'll see them in Galilee, and don't forget to tell Peter. So, here they were, waiting. But like I said, waiting can take forever. They didn't know what to do with themselves. It was all still a bit confusing. Jesus had died, had been put into the tomb, and then he'd been alive again. It must be true because they'd seen him. And so had the women, and the two men on the road to Emmaus. But now they really didn't know what to do. They were all feeling a little bit lost without Jesus. I guess Peter remembered too how he had let Jesus down and said 3 times that he didn't even know him. Peter looked at the others. Hey guys, I know, let's go fishing tonight. It'll be great, just like the old times. Well, we might just as well. No point in just sitting around, is there? What about you lot? Are you coming? Seven of them went in the end. There was Peter, Thomas, Nathaniel, James and John, and 2 others. As the sun went down and the moon came up, they set off onto the lake. All night long they fished. They put the nets out and pulled them in again, and out and in again, and again. Somehow it just wasn't the same anymore. You know, we can feel that way too if we don't have Jesus as our friend. We may have other friends, but no one can be there all the time like Jesus can. They'd been out on the lake all night, and guess what they caught? That's right, absolutely nothing. As the sun came up, they looked over to the beach. What's that over there? There's a fire, and I can smell fish cooking. Someone was standing there by a fire. He called out to them, "Good morning, did you catch any fish?" "No," they replied. "Throw the net in on the right side of the boat." And they did. And guess what? Did you get the answer right? It was completely loaded. It was full of fish. It was so full that they couldn't even pull it back into the boat. Suddenly, John realised, it's Jesus, it must be. Maybe he remembered the last time that he'd seen Jesus fill their nets full of fish. That was 3 years before, when they first began to follow him. Jesus was the only person who could give them what they needed, just like that. Jesus can give us all we need as well. What's more, he's promised to do so. But we have to remember that what we need and what we want aren't always the same thing. Now Peter quickly grabbed his clothes, jumped over the side of the boat and got to the shore as quickly as he could. He got there and he was all wet, dripping, and stood by the fire, steaming. The rest of the crew brought the boat in with the net full of fish dragging along behind them. When everyone got to the shore, there was bread and there was some fish already cooking on the fire for breakfast. Jesus called across to them as the boat came in, "Bring some of the fish you've caught." Peter went over to the net. There were 153 big fish, and the net hadn't even broken, not a single tear. Jesus looked at them all. "Come on, let's eat." He took the bread and the fish and he gave it to them. They all sat down to the most wonderful breakfast they had ever tasted. It was good to be back with Jesus again. When they had finished eating, Jesus turned to Peter. There he is. And he said, "Peter, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." "Take care of my lambs." That was strange, wasn't it? But Jesus asked again, "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know I do." "Take care of my sheep." Then he said it again. That was 3 times. "Peter, do you love me?" Peter was hurt inside. "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Take care of my sheep." Do you remember how many times Peter lied and said that he didn't even know Jesus? That's right, 3. Just the same number of times. Can you imagine how Peter felt? But what did Jesus mean? He didn't have any sheep, did he? No. But he did say that all those who follow him are like sheep, and he was telling Peter that he still wanted him to help. He needed Peter to look after those who had followed him and to teach them, just like he first told them that he could fish for people. Jesus wanted Peter to know a really, really important thing. Jesus wanted Peter to know that he still loved him. Maybe Peter thought that after all he'd done, that he was finished. No good for anything, washed up on the shore. But Jesus wanted him and still had a job for him to do. Peter thought that he'd done the worst thing in the world possible. But Jesus knew that he was really sorry and had forgiven him. You know, it doesn't matter what we've done, however bad it is. If we are really sorry, we can ask Jesus to forgive us. Even after we've begun to follow him, just like Peter, and things go wrong, we can still come back and Jesus will never stop loving us. You need never be afraid that you've been too bad for God, because God's love will never end. All we need to do is to be really sorry and come back to him.